about that fight, and Eric came along to watch the fight, and that particular fight didn't go my way, which is okay too. But then I went down to South America. I got headhunted for a job down there when I used to have jobs, and that was my thing. And I was continuing to train down there, and I was learning about the way boxing's done in South America and so on. And just before I came back to Ireland, I had an accident. So I slipped getting over a fence, and a metal bar went halfway through my left forearm. Now, for some of you guys who don't like blood, you're probably a little bit horrified by that, but that's not the bone, that's the tendon. So you can imagine, as a boxer or kickboxer, you get an injury like that, and it could be, the end of days. Also, I played a guitar, which you need. I use the left hand for finger picking and stuff, playing chords. And I was very worried, and so I contacted Eric again. I said, "Hey, Eric, tell me about that mushroom," right? Because he'd introduced the mushroom idea to me, right? And anyway, he told me lots of stuff, that a lot of which went over my head. But what he did say, which really stood out for me, he said, "Look, if it doesn't work, you can have a refund. I'm very confident that this is something that will help your body recover. I don't take pharmaceutical medications anyway, so I didn't really have much options to go to." And I'm so grateful that Eric thought to share this with me for a number of reasons. I now have multiple businesses around mushrooms. I'm absolutely head over heels, as you can see from this picture behind me, about mushrooms and what they can do for the planet. I do believe they're the third kingdom: flora, fauna, and fungi. I do believe there's incredible opportunities for what they can do for the human body, not only for athletes, but for everyone else as well. Now, I took a supplement, which is like one of these guys, right? Because I didn't believe, because I was a skeptic, that what Eric had showed me could work. He showed me this, which was that mushroom, okay, which is called reishi, which we're going to talk about in a bit. And it was infused in a coffee. I said, "Eric, really? Who's going to believe that coffee could be healthy? And how on earth am I going to heal my arm with some coffee? That's ridiculous." But I said, "I will take the supplement." And so he's there laughing while he's drinking his own coffee there. But after 3.5 weeks, that was the difference in my arm. So no discoloration, no inflammation, no pain. I was back doing press ups on my knuckles, which I could do before, I might add. It didn't suddenly happen. But then I also had no more psoriasis. Now, I didn't think psoriasis was a big deal until it disappeared. I went, So for the last 22 years, every time I got stressed, every time there's a big workload in work or something's going on emotionally, family-wise or relationship-wise, I would get a flare-up of this skin condition, which it turns out is autoimmune condition, right? And I thought, and probably some of you guys have the same thing, you may have labeled yourself saying, "I have ... You fill in the blanks, right? But I don't have psoriasis anymore, and it hasn't come back since. So it's not a case of I had it. I was just told I had it, and I believed it. But it turns out that there's a lot of solutions out there in nature. Mushrooms are one of them, that can solve a lot of the challenges that we're having if we were to just open our mind and ask a question rather than make a statement, okay, such as "that's ridiculous" or "that can't work" and all the rest of it. So because of what happened to me, and because of the fact that I reached out to Eric, I then realized there was in a business that I could also help other people with mushrooms, with reishi coffee and tea, and just handy things that people do anyway that I could integrate into their bodies in a way that they didn't have to think about too much, and they could reap the benefits as well. And it got me introduced to the guy I want to introduce you to today. His name is Dr. Bob Rakowski. Aside from the fact that he's a beautiful and incredible human, he's also one of the top sports nutritionists in the world. So he works with all of the top people in almost every major sport in the US, as you can see from this picture in the top right here. And his speciality is getting quick results. So he's going to talk a little bit about how that's worked out for him over the years. But when I first spoke to Eric about this, I was a skeptic. And obviously I'm Irish, so I'm a professional skeptic. And I remember thinking to myself, nobody's going to believe this. This is too out there. Like, I can heal myself with a mushroom. That's ridiculous. Subsequently, a couple of years later now, Joe Rogan has had people on his show loads of times talking about this. We now have Paul Stamets, who's now a globally known individual, talking about medicinal mushrooms and what they can do. And there's people all over the place talking about it, but back then there wasn't anybody. So when I came across Dr. Rakowski and I saw that sort of what he'd been doing and how he'd been integrating reishi into top athletes for a very, very long time at this point, I started to pay attention, because success leaves clues. So what I'd like you guys to do over the next little while is to take off your skeptical hat and then to sort of put on your entrepreneur hat, number one, and then also just think about how can you improve what you're already doing, what you're already passionate about, you know, in the way that you're performing in the sport that you're doing, or you know, whatever goals you have. The last 12 months have showed us quite a lot. Number one, the resilience of the human spirit, if nothing else, but also everybody's found so much more time because they're at home. And they're actually going out and they're doing all this exercise. They're falling in love with the cold sea. Everybody's up climbing mountains. Everyone's posting pictures all over Instagram about how excited they are about exercise. It's beautiful. And I think this is a great opportunity for us now to see how much we can improve our own health and kind of offset the fear and all that sort of stuff that's going on in the world and create opportunity. I think that's crucially important. So with that being said, I'd like to pass it across to Dr. Bob Rakowski. He will introduce himself as well as go into a deep dive into how this can help an athlete. So I just want to clarify, if you are not an expert in sports nutrition, some of this might go over your head, but that's okay, because we're recording it, number one. And number two, it's also live in our Facebook group. So whoever invited you onto the call, you can ask them to add you to that group and tag you in it if there's something that you missed. And if you want to take notes, I would advise you to do so. But either way, get back to whoever introduced you to this call and ask the questions you need to ask. Because I'm very, very grateful that I came across this wonderful mushroom, these wonderful people. And it's a huge part of my life right now. And I'm very grateful for it. So Dr. Bob, I'll pass it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you always for the beautiful intro. You know, you mentioned my professional background. I've treated world champion athletes from every major professional sport. And you're right, we get fast results. And the way we do that is we know that bodies respond to frequency, duration, intensity, quality, and timing of stimuli. And so we will often give the capsule form, right? The Ganoderma capsules, whether it's the spores, the mycelium, or the lucidum, every waking hour, because that's the way to get the fastest change. And you'd be surprised what kind of change you can make in just a day of a regimen like that. I've also treated the other end of the spectrum. You know, this foot was actually given a death sentence. I've actually seen patients that were given a death sentence. They were going to amputate that foot 2 days from the day the picture was taken. But look at it 2 weeks later, that's with nutrients, Ganoderma spores every waking hour and a few other things. And then look at it 17 months later. I've also taught doctors all over the world. And by the way, first and foremost, I'm a family man. So, you know, my beautiful wife, my kids, my granddaughters, you know what, my granddaughters have had Ganoderma every day from conception forward because my daughter-in-law, my daughter consumed Ganoderma multiple times every day, never needed to be reminded, never forgot. Why? Because they did it in coffee, which the world drinks. But here's one thing that I like to tell people, you know, patients always want an instant change. In fact, they wanted to be better yesterday, but what we really want is lasting change. So if I created a normal protocol for these athletes, at the end of the protocol, they'd be done with it and they'd go back to their old habits. But what if we give them a new habit, a healthier habit with coffee and tea? And it doesn't take much time at all to realize how good our coffee and tea is. So I'm going to talk about the top 5 needs of the athlete, but think if your life would be better with these needs met as well. What if you had better focus? What if you had more fuel for better energy? What if you could buffer the acid? You may not know about that, but it slows you down. It makes you inefficient. It may even give you pain. We want to control the inflammatory process. You know, when you give drugs, they actually interfere with healing. When we give nutrients, they buffer the inflammatory process so it doesn't become destructive, and it actually accelerates the healing, as you saw in Lloyd's arm, or as I like to call him, Sir Lloyd. And then recovery. We want to be able to recover from what we're doing. Ganoderma promotes recovery, multiple mechanisms, especially through sleep. We are going to share the value of the Ganoderma plant and the business. And at the end of it, you'll fall into one of four categories. One, you say, you know, I'm glad I spent the time, but no thanks. You know, I'm not interested in the products or the business. That's rare, but if it's you, we honor you. And you know what? You probably know a friend that would be interested. Some people are too. They say, I want the products. I don't want the business. By the way, that was my original interest. I had plenty of businesses. I wasn't interested in the business, but that's a different story. Ultimately, I had the epiphany that I was interested in both, and that makes you, a number four. But some people could be a three. They say, I'm interested in the business, not the products. And a four is interested in both. But let's talk about focus. And I'm going to take a slight tangent. This is a very focused athlete. This is a focused athlete. Mike James in the background is actually an NBA world champion, played 17 NBA seasons, and now he's the boxing manager for Jericho Walton. But whenever I talk to elite athletes, they're going to tell you that focus is the most important thing. In fact, the mental game is about 90% of the outcome. But what I learned through this article is that what we do to tune up a fine-tuned athlete is the same thing that we do for people that are fighting for their lives. And as we get them better, they have they put their body in a position to heal. Yogi Berra had a lot of famous quotes. Baseball is 90% mental, the other half is physical. Well, his math wasn't right, but his principle was. The mental game is the difference between someone who really excels and someone who sits the bench or doesn't even make the team. I love this book, With Winning in Mind, by Lanny Basham. He is an Olympic gold medalist. He also trained a number of gold medalists. And he asked this question within his book: if high-level competition, or since high-level competition is 90% mental, how valuable would it be to optimize brain function and chemistry? And the answer is it would be really, really, really valuable. I've taught people for years that the brain is the most nutrient-dependent, energy-dependent, stress-vulnerable, and toxin-vulnerable organ in our body. Hundreds of medical studies support that. And when we talk about Ganoderma and brain health, it's known to enhance the four major brain chemicals or neurotransmitters: serotonin for happiness, dopamine for focus, and even fine motor control in another part of the brain, GABA for calmness, and acetylcholine for memory. We're going to move on to fuel now. And, you know, when we start talking about food, I really like Hippocrates. This is ancient wisdom. He said, let thy food be thy medicine. But here's what we know now. Today, food is too weak to replete depleted cells in bodies. So this was a journal called Advances in Therapy. They literally got into tissues of people. They took little biopsies and they looked at the nutrient status within the cells. And then they took two groups. They put one group on the best diet that they could find, all organic, every color, every day, really balanced in terms of the proteins, carbohydrates, and fat. And they had them on that diet for 30 days. They also took a group of people, had the great diet and supplementation, and then they went in after the period of time and did biopsies on the tissue. And here's what they found. When people just ate food, they did not improve their nutrient status at all. Now, if you start with someone who's healthy, fit, and strong, wonderful. But what if someone's not that? I mean, about 98% of people really aren't. So if their food is too weak to help them become healthier, we need to supplement. I was lecturing in Orlando, Florida in about the year 2000 with a PhD researcher called Barry Sears. He wrote a book called The Zone. And he put up a copy of the USDA food pyramid. And he said, if ever there's a terrorist-like plot designed to destroy the health of the world, this would be it. So I created my own food pyramid. Food at the base. If God made it, it's okay. If man made it, stay away. Superfoods, of which Ganoderma is the top superfood. And interestingly enough, we have functional foods in the form of coffee and shakes, foods that are fortified in a way that they have proven health benefits. When you look at the reason that anybody makes a food choice all over the world, these are the top 4 criteria. And for more than 85% of the people, this is the order. First of all, it's got to taste good. Second, it has to be easy and convenient. Third, they have to be able to afford it. And then fourth, they use the health benefit as their fourth criteria. I'd like to see that move up to number 1. But the nice thing is that organo products have all of those wonderful qualities. And as I tell people, people never need to be reminded to drink coffee. They never, ever plan to quit. The average coffee drinker in North America drinks 3.3 cups a day. That's over 1,200 cups a year. And by the way, we're not even leading the world in coffee consumption. When you look at Finland, the average coffee drinker there drinks 9 cups of coffee a day. Now we're going to go to the acid buffers. The book Alkalize or Die is an oldie but a goodie. And they tell you if you become progressively acid, you become progressively inefficient, and ultimately you will die. I rather look at the positive side. So let's alkalize and thrive. This is a European journal that says we absolutely need to use alkalizing food supplements if we're ever going to break the pattern of excess acid within our body. American Medical Study, what they found is that the alkaline diet does a lot of really good things. Since this is sports nutrition, I highlighted that it improves muscle mass. But how about reducing tumor cell invasion and metastasis? So think about that for a moment. If we all get cancer cells every day, and there's data that 99% of us do, well, if it never invades nor metastasizes, well, guess what? It's probably not ever going to be a problem. And it also helps us to detoxify. Just a fun picture. It does improve muscle mass. Every hormone in the body is dependent upon the amount of acid, as is every enzyme. And that's the pH scale. When our blood pH is in an ideal range, every hormone and enzyme works perfectly or as good as it can. But as we become too acid, I've never seen anybody too alkaline, they start to have a decrease in effectiveness. And so I happen to like this quote, and here's what it said. Once you get beyond ideal pH, it may take twice as much of the same hormone at the new pH to create an equal response from the tissue. So there's plenty of people that go to their doctor and they think they have hypothyroid. Well, guess what? The hormone levels are fine, but maybe it's a pH circumstance. Or someone thinks, well, they have low testosterone, or for a female, low estrogen or progestin. Could be the same thing. If the body's too acid, the hormones are not going to work anywhere near like they should. I work with a lot of really, really fast people. And this is an Olympic speed graph. And what you'll see is at about 6 seconds into the race, the speed declines. So here's what we know. We have 3 seconds of absolute stored energy, that's stored ATP. Then we have 3 seconds of what's called creatine phosphate. That's only one enzyme step. Then we transition to something called anaerobic glycolysis, which takes more time to make the energy, and the waste product is lactic acid. As lactic acid accumulates, it ultimately slows us down substantially. So Tyson Gay was actually in my office this last week and the week before. He took a few years off of running. He had a family tragedy. And so it's good to keep him in our prayers. His daughter was actually killed in a drive-by shooting. And he said, Bob, I need to get back to running because it's really my passion and my sanctuary. But 2 weeks after I treated Tyson Gay, he beat Usain Bolt straight up in the 100 meters. And you can find that on YouTube or on my Facebook page. And as I tell people, he literally signed $1 million endorsement before his sweat dried. So when we look at Ganoderma as an alkalizing agent, it's known to be the most alkaline food on the planet. And I put a little qualifier on that. There's over 50,000 edible plants. I really doubt they've tested all 50,000. But of the hundreds that they have tested, Ganoderma is most alkaline. When we look at inflammatory control, if we have too much inflammation, it actually burns us up and burns us out. And it's called the secret killer or the silent killer. Well, Ganoderma is known to modulate the inflammatory process by at least 13 known mechanisms. Finally, recovery. My favorite mechanism of recovery is sleep. And this is from Anders Ericsson, world's foremost authority on peak performance. And here's what he said: the best of the best. It wasn't just athletes, it could be musicians, it could be people that are thriving in business, it could be a chess champion. The best of the best sleep 8.6 hours a night. So here's the deal: if you use your brain or body more, you have to rest your brain and body more. And medicine knows that there is no substitute for sleep. You can't make up for it with a better diet or more appropriate exercise. We must sleep. And finally, back to Ganoderma. People who consume Ganoderma fall asleep faster, sleep deeper longer, and wake up more refreshed. Manny Pacquiao is a guy that absolutely fell in love with our Organo products and became a business partner. And it's a fun story about Pacquiao. You know, he was offered a cup of coffee and he says, I don't drink coffee. It makes my heart race. The person that offered him said, look, this one won't. Give it a try. So Pacquiao very slowly started sipping a latte, took one sip, and he was really waiting for his heart to beat out of his chest. That didn't happen. So he took another sip, finished the first cup, asked for a second, asked for a third, had the workout of a lifetime. And he says, wow, this is amazing. How do I get more? And people said, well, you know what? It's simple. You can either be a retail customer, you can be a wholesale buyer, or you could get paid to consume or share the product. If you follow Pacquiao, he's earned nearly $200 million in the boxing ring. So you might not think he'd be looking for a side business. So the way the person sweetened the deal is they said, look, you're a humanitarian. You want to help people not as fortunate. Guess what? If you join this coffee business, you can build a team and help thousands of families achieve better health and wealth. And Pacquiao did just that. And he's a diamond within the company of Organo. Ulysses, another great story. I put up his testimonial because basically everything that we're talking about, he realized with one, he saw the difference in one cup of coffee. So before we transition to the business segment, Sir Lloyd, I'm going to bring you back and see, do we have any questions, or do you have any questions?
We don't have any questions in the chat here. What I would like, maybe if you could touch on just a little bit about how it can aid with female hormones. Now, the reason why I'm asking that question is because all of the studies done on exercise and, you know, BMIs and all this sort of stuff, they're all done on males because women, their stats change too often, apparently, to make good statistics. And so they often get left out. So I know there's a couple of ladies I'll be watching the replay, one or two are on at the moment. Just thought you could touch on that briefly when it comes to athleticism and energy.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, we have a full Zoom on female health issues, and we can, you know, find a way to put that in the group, or probably is in the group already. But we mentioned already about alkalizing. That's going to be very, very important. But Ganoderma is an adaptogen. And here's a known fact. We either make stress hormones or sex hormones, not both simultaneously. So, and I'll put my doctor's hat on for a second. We have a section of our brain called the hypothalamus. We also have the pituitary, which is known as the master endocrine gland. And the hypothalamus controls the adrenal glands, the thyroid gland, and the sex glands. And so that would be the testicles in males, that would be the ovaries in the female. Well, when there's a stress signal, the hypothalamus releases something called corticotrophin releasing factor, and that has an impact of negating. It shuts down both the thyroid and the gonads. And so ultimately, in a stress circumstance, we're only thinking about one thing, fighting or fleeing. We can't prioritize blood flow to our sex organs. We don't want to put the person in a circumstance where, you know, their libido is sky high. They're fighting for their life. You know, let's focus on that. Besides that, there's a number of toxins that impact female hormone balance, and they are specifically what are known as xenoestrogens, xenos with an X, foreign estrogens, estrogens in plastics, estrogens in pesticides, estrogens injected into animals. And when I showed the slide on the alkaline diet, we know that alkalizes in the system helps detoxification, but there are direct medical studies on Ganoderma helping to clear these xenoestrogens. And ultimately, it can prevent breast cancer modulate autoimmunity, and is it even proven against 16 different types of cancer? So many different mechanisms there.
Thanks so much. Thanks for adding that. And again, anyone who's watching this on Facebook and you're in the group already, if you're watching this is the first time you're here, you can just reach out to whoever invited you and they'll add you into that group. They can tag you in that video Dr. Bob was talking about. We have one other question here from Brendan, which is, does Tyson Gay consume organo products?
He does now. So what's interesting is we go back to 2012 when he beat Bolt. I wasn't in the company yet. I didn't know about it, but I actually did give him reishi. I've used reishi all 30 years of clinical practice. It's the first herb that I read a complete book about. It was entitled Reishi, the King of Herbs. You know, when you start studying nutrition, you have to realize, as you said in the introduction, the plant kingdom has so many answers. And I said, okay, let's start with the King of Herbs, and have used it since my very first year of practice.
Yeah. And I believe also the gentleman who did the shortest marathon in history is also consumes it in Kenya, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe you can elaborate.
His name's Iliad Upchogi, and he ran a sub 2-hour marathon. It's fascinating that, you know, they figured out how to do it. He was on a flat track at sea level, ran on a really perfect day, had pace setters. And because he had pace setters and everything else, they don't want to consider that a world record. And for those people that are naysayers or haters, I tell them, you know, you go and do it. You run a marathon in less than 2 hours and let's see how it's done. This man is amazing. And yes, he consumed organo red tea. What's fascinating is he's got such now high price sponsors that they're saying, okay, we want exclusivity. If we're going to pay you $1 million to endorse you, you endorse us and only us. But Organo doesn't pay endorsements. And yet we still have endorsements of people like Pacquiao and Ulysses and plenty of others, because our products are good enough to endorse on their own.
Yeah, thanks so much. So there's also a couple of other things here. So what's the difference between reishi and Ganoderma? Well, I can answer that. There isn't any difference between reishi and Ganoderma. So Ganoderma lucidum is the taxonomical name of reishi. Reishi is the Japanese name for a Chinese herb called ling qi or ling zhi, depending. That's probably, I'm brutalizing that a little bit, I'm sure. But yeah, no, it's the same herb, same mushroom. Dr. Bob, could you speak a bit about Ganoderma and mitochondria?
Yeah, so literally there's direct evidence that Ganoderma enhances mitochondrial function. We could do it by alkalizing. First of all, we should even mention what mitochondria is for some of our listeners. Mitochondria is how the body makes aerobic energy, energy in the presence of oxygen. There's actually 22 different steps, each with different nutrient cofactors in what's known as the electron transport chain. So it's very slow energy. And when you're running a marathon, guess what? That's what you're doing. And that energy capacity of the mitochondria is very, very long, but it's not very intense. So the intense is only about half of what you get with anaerobic metabolism. But Ganoderma has all the fabulous 50. So it's got the cofactors for the mitochondria. It alkalizes, it modulates the inflammatory process. And if you were to go to PubMed.gov and type in Ganoderma and mitochondria, you'll find dozens of studies showing that it enhances mitochondrial efficiency.
And then is there a queen of herbs? Claudio wants to know.
Well, that's a really good question. And I don't know that answer. Do you know it? Yeah, it could be ginseng, but you know, ginseng's a pretty good one. We'd have to look around. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a good question. If we're talking about mushrooms, because to be clear, mushrooms are not plants. So anyone who is thinking, hey, is that a plant? It's not a plant. So mushrooms are a separate kingdom. So in the country of Chile, they've already been accepted as the third kingdom, but they're a little bit slow to move around the world for one reason or another. So if we're looking at the most studied mushroom after reishi, with the most therapeutic effects, it is a mushroom called cordyceps. So as you can see here, lion's mane is definitely quite popular when it comes to brain health and a number of other things, as is turkey tail and a few others. But Ganoderma is by far the most, and then cordyceps comes in next. So we were talking about that Red T, who's the runner who did the sub 2-hour marathon, rather than a mile, whose name I can't recall, but that's okay.
Eliot Kipchoge.
There you go. Eventually I'll get it. But so the Red Tea has both of those, Ganoderma and cordyceps, in it, and it's incredible for inflammation. So with that being said, we're going to take one more question. I hear there's some new products coming soon to help with athletic individuals, such as a sports drink. Maybe we could touch on that briefly.
Absolutely. You know what? So I'm the company spokesperson for the Cognitive Drink. In fact, I will be doing a live Zoom for the Organo World on Tuesday. But it has Ganoderma, it has cordyceps, it has lion's mane, it has probiotics, it's got green tea, it's got theanine, it's got caffeine, it's got B12. And the synergistic benefits of all this gives you a smooth, long-lasting, healthy energy with this apple kiwi flavor, which is absolutely delicious. So it's pure, it's clean, it's long-lasting. And the reviews are absolutely epic. This was a project long in the making. It took a while to get the exact right ratios, but keep in mind, we also partner with a brain company called NeuroTracker. So we were able to test this product and see what kind of cognitive boost could we get. And it's absolutely epic. But guess what? You boost the brain, you boost the body, and we've got enough for both in there. So that's one of many benefits. That's going to be a phenomenal seller for us.
Awesome. So we do. I'm going to. You know what? We'll take just two. There's two more questions. So I'm going to just go quickly through. One of them is nephrotic syndrome. I'm probably not pronouncing that properly.
No, you are. That's very good. So what happens is there's things that can happen where the kidney filtration unit can become damaged and they can start spilling protein at high levels. And if that isn't controlled quick, it can actually lead to kidney failure. And so I've had a few cases of nephrotic syndrome, and we're not supposed to make any health claims, but these patients had complete and total and rapid resolution. I also have on my personal Facebook page, and I could maybe put it in the Organo Facebook group, a woman that was on a kidney transplant list, a type 1 diabetic. It wasn't nephrotic syndrome.
Yeah.
You got to find out who to mute there, Sir Lloyd.
I have done. That's fine. Yeah.
There you go. Careful with your buttons there. But at any rate, so this woman who was on kidney transplant list, she's spilling thousands of protein units of protein in the urine every single day. We were able to almost completely get that. We got down to a trace of protein in the urine. Took a year to do it, but her nephrologist was beyond amazed. So the healing power of the body is beyond amazing. And, we just need to tap into it. Simple enough.
100%. So we have one more question, and it's from Ania, and she hasn't typed it yet, so she's going to have to unmute herself and ask it in person.
Yeah, I have a quick question. I work in beauty industry, and how can I relate this to my client? How can I sell it to my clients in my beauty business?
Well,
because they don't understand about sport. They don't care about sport. They want it to look pretty. How can I relate them? How can I sell it nicely way?
Sure. Well, the first thing I want to tell you is we have a complete and total beauty line. So we have the BU, which is all organic, super clean, a moisturizer, a cleanser, a revitalizer, an anti-aging, things like Manuka honey and bee venom and jojoba oil, really, really, really good stuff. But beauty starts on the inside out. And so when you look at the process of aging, Ganoderma is called the herb of immortality. It ages us slowly. And the term Ganoderma lucidum, break it down, derma like dermatologist, lucidum means bright and shiny, Ganoderma means bright and shiny skin. And we know that when a plant has a certain property, it gives that property to humans when they consume it. So it helps us to get bright and shiny skin. It cleans us on the inside and out. And then we do have a skincare line. So lots of ways to enhance beauty. but people will notice that they look better and feel better. Their skin will have more of a shine. In fact, everything about them will be fine-tuned. Thank you
Thanks
for your
for
question.
Thank you so much.
thanks.
Thanks. Yes. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for asking that, Annie, and it's a good question. We're going to actually segue into the other part of the presentation now anyway. So Dr. Bob will share how he shared it in his clinic, because one clinic may do different things than another, but it still has people walking in the door typically. And so the conversation may be similar and may kind of be some crossovers there. So Dr. Bob, if you want to crack on and then segue into the next part. And I want to just mention to those of you who are watching whose interest is in getting healthy, consuming the product, kind of actually having an experience about how this might work in your own body, you're also welcome to stay on the call as well, because one thing I've noticed in the last year, I'm guessing a lot of you have noticed as well, is that the world has changed. It's just gone sideways, upside down, inside out. It doesn't look anything like what it used to look like barely a year ago. So it's sort of almost a requirement on us at this point to actually have our entrepreneur hat on, because all of the things, all of the pillars of things that we thought we could rely on, not so sure whether we can rely on them anymore. Entire industries disappeared and all the rest of it. So I would like you to just tune in a little bit as we go through this next part. And who knows, this might resonate with you, it might not, and that's okay too. And we're going to love you and meet you where you're at. But I would urge you to pay attention. And then we will also have a quick Q&A at the end of this section as well. So over to you, Dr. Bob. Thanks so much.
Oh, well, brilliant segue always. So, when it comes to health, I can tell you, I've worked with people that they're very, very good about their supplements, but ultimately they stop taking them or they forget to take them. But coffee drinkers never forget to drink their coffee. They never need to be reminded, and they typically do it multiple times each day, every day, 365 days a year, except leap year, they do it 366. So the world definitely drinks coffee. So there are some numbers there for you, and let me expand on them. We're the #2 beverage on the planet. Water is #1. 64% of Americans drink coffee every single day. That might be somewhere near that in every country. And we are in terms of coffee, 100% of the world countries. Organo's in 40 countries and expanding. People have been consuming coffee for over 1,000 years. And now they consume over 2 billion cups a day. Most people can't even begin to fathom what a billion is. So, here's what I tell people. 1 billion years ago, the universe doesn't exist. 1 billion days ago, there was no life on planet Earth. 1 billion hours ago was the old Stone Age. 1 billion minutes ago was the Roman Empire. 1 billion seconds ago was 31 years ago. But 1 billion cups of coffee ago, well, that was about 10 hours ago. And think about how massive that is and the demand for this product. There are reasons for people to not drink coffee. And in fact, those people that are challenged by coffee usually avoid it. But what if we actually made it better? What if we kept all the things that people really, really love? We eliminate the bad stuff like the acid within the coffee, the quick rise and crash of energy, the nervousness, the insomnia. And what if we added some really great benefits? So our coffee has that rich flavor. It's got that fantastic pick-me-up, that smooth energy in our case, as opposed to the pick up and crash. And the way we do it is with Ganoderma. So I'm going to segue to Paul Stamets real quick. You can look him up on his Joe Rogan podcast. There's a YouTube video, which is 4 minutes of it, but he talks about how mushrooms actually cured his stutter. Now, can we call it a cure for anything? No, but we have had people whose stutter went away after consuming organo products. Paul Stamets is the world's foremost authority on medicinal mushrooms. And in the Q&A, we know that he's looked at what mushrooms do, which one's the best of the best. And here it is. Ganoderma is absolutely the king of herbs. Cordyceps #2, lion's mane is popular. So lion's mane is in our energy drink. These are the 9 reasons that people will give for people to avoid coffee. But wonderfully, Ganoderma negates absolutely all 9. And one of them we actually have a patented process on. We have 2 patents. One actually alkalizes the coffee, which is very important. When we pre-brew the coffee, we eliminate the 30 acids. That maximizes the nutrient benefit, but it also removes a harmful effect of coffee. And we also have a patent process by which we extract the nutrients. And our coffees are super delicious. That's the number one criteria. It's way more convenient. You just add water and much less expensive. So, I tell the story when I would travel just before 9/11, I'd always buy a big Starbucks and I'd go through security at the airport. I remember the first time after 9/11, I had a big coffee. I was walking through and they looked at me. They said, "Sorry, this can't come through." I said, "Why not?" They said, "Too much water." I said, "What am I supposed to do with it?" They said, "Chug it." I said, "It's 200 degrees. How am I going to chug it?" They said, "Well, I guess you're leaving it behind, or wait." Well, I had a flight to catch, so I couldn't wait. So when you consider we're delicious, we're convenient, we're less expensive, we have the health benefits, is it reasonable that 1 in 100 coffee drinkers would switch to our brand? Now, why do we say 1 in 100? We would be a multi-billion-dollar a year company if just 1 in 100 people switch to our brand. And that's only in coffee. Then we start talking about tea and shakes and skincare and travel and all the other things we have. Truly fascinating. So this is the company Organo. They're in their 12th year now. This is their corporate headquarters in Vancouver, British Columbia. But Organo crossed $1 billion in its first 5 years. And that, by the way, is faster than Apple, faster than McDonald's, faster than Microsoft, faster than Facebook. And they did it without a single storefront or without a dollar spent on advertising. How'd they do it? Word of mouth referral. When we start looking at Ganoderma, 4,000 years of human health enhancement, that's the rich history. Over 1,900 peer-reviewed medical studies on PubMed, no known drug interactions, no known toxicity, safe in pregnancy, even recommended in pregnancy, and the US market for Ganoderma, $2.5 billion a year. We've dotted every I and crossed every T in terms of quality certification. I haven't seen a nutraceutical company that can match them. And here's what we know. If you were to start a new business today, it's very, very risky. There's only a 4% chance that you would be in business in 10 years. Organo's been around 12 years. When you partner with a successful company, it dramatically reduces the risks. And what do? Well, they do the research and development. They do the production. They do the customer service. They do the shipping and receiving. They do the legal compliance. They do the accounting. They do the logistics. They do the global expansion. Our role, very, very simply, is we share the products, we share the opportunity, and we teach others to do the same. And by the way, sharing the opportunity and teaching others could be as simple as getting them to watch a Zoom. And we have multiple Zooms every single week. Teamwork definitely makes the dream work. And so once you join our Facebook groups, we have 3 of them. People that are interested in the product, we call that the Miracle of Organo. People interested in the business, we call that Why Organo, or people that have already joined, that's our OG family worldwide. But you'll see posts for when and where the Zooms are. So what does it cost to join? $49.95 plus your initial products of choice. $49.95 gets you a world-class website in 40 countries, operational immediately. It takes about 5 minutes to sign up. And then you're going to want initial inventory. And so Organo has what they call accelerator packs. And the reason they call them accelerator packs is they accelerate your earnings. So if you buy a bronze pack, you will accelerate your earning over just picking your own products. If you pick a silver pack, by the way, the bronze pack is $250. If you pick a silver pack for $500, you get paid more ways and more money than the bronze pack. And the gold pack, about $1,200 US worth of products. That one you get paid more than twice as many ways and more than twice as much. So that's the ultimate way to accelerate your earnings. So one of my mentors was a guy named Jim Rohn. Jim is famous for launching Tony Robbins, but his backstory was he was a college dropout in the 1960s and was just frustrated with life. he adopted a mentor and he said, look, I want to be successful like you. And his mentor said, all right, get better every day. For things to get better, you have to get better. And I want you to look at this business model, because this is how average people can earn millions if they choose. So Jim Rohn, in 6 years, became a multi-millionaire in the 1960s selling vitamins in this business model. When he would finish a business meeting like this, he would ask these 4 questions, and here they are. The first question is why? Why did you take the time to be on here today? There's so many other things you could do. Second question is the answer to the first. Why not? Why not learn about something that can easily improve your health with the first dose and build on it every dose after that? Third question is why not you? Someone's going to say, this makes sense. I'm going to start consuming the products. I'm going to start sharing the business. And the last question is why not now? So here's the reality. The longer you wait to act on information, the least likely you are to act on it. Once you build a team, suddenly you start leveraging the activity of hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands, like I've been able to do over the last 9 years. And that gives you time freedom, money freedom, location freedom, health, beautiful confidence. That's the skincare with a better brain and body. And we call that total freedom. So with that said, Sir Lloyd, do you want to come back and add a little of your magic to the mix?
Yeah, thanks so much, Dr. Bob, and thanks so much for that. I always love the way that you explain things. And, one of the things that comes to mind is not everybody wants to be a millionaire, number one, right? It's not on people's radar. They're like, okay, but why would I want to do that? Because it's just not of interest. Some people just want to feel good and they want to spend time with their family. But one thing I have noticed is people do want the freedom to choose whether or not they want to be doing really well or okay or whatever. They want to have some control over, their movements, their decisions, whether they go on an extra holiday this year or not. Now, granted, holidays have been on hold for everyone for a little while at this point, but that being said, I guess eventually that's going to come back. And if I just look at my own situation, I decided to go out there and share this with people because of the experience that I'd had. And the more that I read into what mushrooms can do, and more importantly, what they can do from an ecosystem point of view, in like how we can educate people about conserving the planet, I started to understand that the gifts that this third kingdom has to offer are above and beyond what is currently studied and what's on the radar for most people. And so what I really like about this is that we are really on the cusp of something. Now, for those of us who've been around for a while, we've been like, yeah, we've been saying that for ages. But for those of you that, this is a new idea, a new concept, I just have to say that I find it so rewarding. I get to see people coming back on it. I tried loads of things and they didn't work, and now I'm feeling better. And some of them are feeling a lot better, some of them feeling a little bit better, but when you're not feeling good, that's a big deal. And so as soon as we have to make an income somehow, because the world currently operates on that model, rightly or wrongly, that we may as well do something that makes an impact in the lives of others. And I think that's important, quite frankly. And so for me, I haven't had a job in years. Didn't want one, didn't need one. That being said, didn't have massive overheads either, to be fair. So, we're all in different situations. Some of us are hugely in debt after the last 12 months, and that's not great. But, you have to think about things in terms of your long-term plan. You need to understand that consistency is required to achieve no matter what you're doing, no matter whether you're doing a degree in medicine or whether you're learning how to do mushroom farming, or it doesn't really matter what you're going after. If you're trying to build a business, you're trying to look after your personal development and become your best version of yourself, it takes time and it takes dedication and it takes persistence. So if you're going to do it anyway, you may as well do it with something that's making an impact. Because I think the choice is to just hang around and hope your boss is going to look after you. Who's looking after your boss? Right? Because, I just want to share a story here. my family been in traditional business for 40 years. They're at the top of their industry. They're on the top shopping street in my country, and they've been closed for 10 and a half months out of the last 13. Right? And the rent is going to have to be paid. Right now, the rent's on hold now because there's no money coming in. But like when we open again, like how on earth is that going to work? So if your mindset is thinking, oh, well, when we get back to work, it'll be grand. It won't be grand. So we have to really think of, who's going to look after us, if not us, basically. And so I think it is important to be thinking about what else we can do. And that's not to incite fear anywhere, but just to understand that there's options out there for us to, improve our life and enhance it in little ways that make a big difference over a long time. So that being said, I thank you all for joining us. Get back to whoever invited you onto the call. Definitely get some products into you, have an experience. If you haven't already been invited to any of our Facebook groups, please reach out to whoever invited you onto the call. And if that was me, and it was on Instagram and we've never even spoken before, possibly, which is okay too, then just send me a message, and likewise with anyone else. And let's see if we can help you out. All right, guys, thank you so much, Dr. Bob. It's always a pleasure. And great to have you all here, and thanks for coming. See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.